I heard the garage door open. Then nothing. No footsteps. No keys on the counter. No rustling of a purse. Just silence. I waited 32 seconds. Yes, I counted. Then stepped out of the pantry, still holding the crumpled receipt from the florist that wasn't addressed to me. Her car was there. Lights off. Trunk closed. But Melissa? Gone. I walked to the hallway mirror. The one with the cracked edge she kept saying we needed to replace. I stared at myself, not out of vanity, but to watch my expression while I whispered the same sentence over and over. There has to be a reason. There has to be a reason. There has to be. The mirror didn't answer. Neither did she. At 9:47 p.m., I got the text. Melissa, business conference extended. Be home next week. Extended. Like she was doing me a favor. No mention of the dinner I made. The phone call I waited for. The storm outside. Just another disappearance wrapped in corporate lingo. So I stared at her message. I even reread it out loud. Then I typed. Me. No rush. The divorce conference just started here. And I meant it. For the first time in 7 years, I really meant it. What happened next wasn't what you'd expect. No confrontation. No confession. She didn't call. She didn't FaceTime. She texted 2 words. Please, don't. Don't what? Don't ask? Don't leave? Don't know? I didn't respond. Instead, I took the florist receipt, smoothed it out, and finally Googled the sender address. It wasn't a shop. It was a condo. In a part of the city she said she'd never been to. Funny. That's where the trail begins. And I'm about to follow it. The condo building looked expensive. Not ridiculous, but curated. Like everything had been chosen to impress, but quietly. No loud colors. No cheap materials. The type of place where even the doormat probably had a backstory. It was Saturday afternoon, the kind of gray November day where even the sky seems tired of pretending. I'd parked down the street and walked the block twice before working up the nerve to actually go inside. I'd rehearsed my excuse in case someone stopped me. Oh, I'm delivering for Corio, but no one did. The main door had been left ajar, propped open with a package. Lucky me. Unit 4C. That's what the florist receipt had said. Delivery, Melissa V. Unit 4C. No last name. Just an initial. Like whoever ordered the bouquet wanted to give just enough truth to be dangerous. The elevator smelled like lavender and regret. I kept expecting someone to get on. They didn't. The 4th floor opened with a mechanical ding that sounded way too cheerful for what I was about to do. I stood outside the door. 4C, matte black. Brass numbers. A faint scuff mark near the bottom. The kind of suitcase Will makes when you're dragging it in too fast. I looked down. A single heel mark on the welcome mat. Size 7, maybe 8. Definitely not mine. I knocked. No answer. I waited. Counted to 15. Knocked again. Nothing. Then, without really deciding to, I pressed my hand to the doorknob and twisted. It opened. Wide open. Unlocked. Inside, it smelled like her. Not perfume. Her lotion. Almond oil and jasmine. It hit me in the chest like a punch I didn't see coming. My heart started pounding so loud I could hear it behind my eyes. I stepped inside, slow, quiet, like the floor might betray me. The condo was too clean. I don't mean neat. I mean staged. Like nobody actually lived there. A gray couch. A glass coffee table. A single throw blanket folded with surgical precision. Everything in neutral colors. It didn't feel like a home. Except for one thing. A framed photo on the shelf. Not of us. Of her and a man I'd never seen in my life. He had that tech startup look. Close-cut beard. Expensive but meant to look casual shirt. The kind of smile people practice in bathroom mirrors. Melissa stood next to him, wearing the green wrap dress she told me she never wears anymore because it doesn't fit right. She looked radiant. Carefree. Like the version of her I used to know. Only this wasn't old. The background was clearly a rooftop patio. Downtown. And judging by the skyline lighting, early October. That was supposed to be during the Boston conference. My fingers were shaking as I picked up the frame. It wasn't glass. It was acrylic. Modern. Sleek. Like everything else in this place that wasn't mine. I scanned the room again. There were 2 toothbrushes in the bathroom. A pair of sneakers by the front door, men's size 11. A dog bowl with no dog. And on the nightstand, a phone charger identical to mine. I don't know how long I stood there. Maybe 5 minutes. Maybe 20. Long enough to memorize it all. Long enough to hate myself for not seeing it sooner. Then the door handle clicked behind me. Someone was coming in. I froze. That sound, the metallic click of a turning key, the subtle pressure on the doorknob, the hinge beginning to shift. It was like time slowed, and every part of my body decided to stop working at once. I was standing in the middle of someone else's life, and now I was about to be caught inside it. I ducked behind the couch just as the front door creaked open. Footsteps. Slow. Confident. Not rushed, not alarmed. This wasn't a break into them. They belonged here. I peeked over the armrest. It wasn't Melissa. It was him. The man from the photo. Taller than I expected, maybe mid-30s, carrying a laptop bag over one shoulder and a coffee in the other hand. He kicked the door shut behind him with a practiced motion and sighed. The kind of sigh people let out when they think they're finally alone. I could hear the low sound of jazz playing from his phone, muffled inside his coat pocket. He set the coffee on the kitchen island, pulled off his coat, then turned toward the hallway, toward the bedroom. I stood up. I don't even remember deciding to. My legs just moved on their own. His eyes caught mine mid-step. He flinched so hard, he almost dropped his phone. Who the hell are you? He barked, immediately backing toward the counter, eyes darting toward what I assumed was a drawer with something heavy in it. How did you get in here? I stepped out from behind the couch fully now, my hands up, not in surrender, more like disbelief. Like I was just as stunned to be there as he was to see me. I could ask you the same thing, I said. My voice didn't shake, but my stomach was in full revolt. Is this your place? He hesitated, just for a second. Then, yeah, it is. Interesting, I said, walking over to the shelf. I picked up the framed photo again, Melissa and this guy, smiling like they had nothing to hide. Because that's my wife in this picture. His whole face changed. He went pale. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The cocky posture vanished like it had never been there. He started. You're Warren? So he knew my name. That shattered something inside me. It was one thing to be betrayed. It was another to be a secret. But knowing that she had talked about me to him, maybe even with him, like I was some obstacle to work around, that was another level of poison. I clenched my jaw. So you do know who I am. He nodded slowly. His hands came up, palms out, as if trying to calm a wild animal. Look, man, I didn't know. Not at first. She said you were. He paused, swallowing hard. Separated. Did she also say we were celebrating our anniversary 2 months ago in Asheville? I snapped. Because I still have the reservation confirmation if you want to fact-check it. He rubbed his face like he was trying to wake up from a bad dream. Jesus Christ. I took a step forward. He didn't move. How long has this been going on? He looked up at me, hesitant. Since May. My brain went quiet. That was 6 months. 6 months of smiling, of good-night kisses, of work trips, and I miss you texts. 6 months of sitting across from a woman at dinner, thinking you know who she is, while she's already emotionally unpacking in another man's condo. He ran a hand through his hair. She said she was going to tell you. That it was complicated. Complicated, I repeated flatly. We stood in silence for a long moment. Neither of us knew what to do with the weight of what had just settled between us. The worst part? He looked just as broken as I felt. He finally spoke. I think you should see something. He walked to his laptop bag, unzipped it, pulled out a silver MacBook, and opened it right there on the kitchen counter. He typed quickly, then turned the screen toward me. It was an email thread. From Melissa. Subject line, don't respond to him. He's unstable. The most recent message had been sent 3 days ago. I read the subject line 3 times before I even clicked it. My own name, followed by that single word, unstable. It sat there on the screen like a diagnosis. A warning label. A narrative I hadn't written, but one that had apparently been passed around without my consent. Don't respond to him. He's unstable. The guy, who still hadn't told me his name, just stood there with his arms crossed, like he'd accidentally opened a box neither of us were prepared to deal with. She said you'd show up, he finally muttered, like it was supposed to mean something. The email was dated 3 days ago. The same night, she'd told me she'd be in San Diego. The same night I'd called and gotten her voicemail 3 times in a row. I scrolled down. Her message was long, polished, cold. If he reaches out to you, don't engage. He's going through a mental health spiral and tends to fixate. I've tried to manage it, but he's begun tracking my locations. He might sound calm. That's part of it. Just stay quiet, stay smart. I'll handle it legally soon. I could barely feel my hands anymore. It wasn't just the lie. It was the audacity of it. The control. The way she had preloaded my breakdown in advance, written it like a script, and handed it to the only person who might believe her side of the story. The man, I didn't even want to call him a rival anymore, looked at me with something almost like pity. I didn't want to believe it at first, he said. But the way she said it, like it was already decided. Like you were dangerous. She's turning me into a villain, I said, barely above a whisper. He nodded. She didn't want me to tell you anything. Said she was filing something soon. That you were. Unraveling. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was surreal. I had spent months doubting myself. Gaslighting myself. Thinking I was imagining the distance, the coldness, the disappearing acts. I told myself not to jump to conclusions, not to be paranoid, not to turn into that guy. And meanwhile, she was laying the groundwork, behind my back, to paint me as exactly that. I leaned against the counter. The room felt smaller now. Or maybe I was just finally seeing it for what it really was. Not a home, not a retreat, but a stage. She's been living two lives, I said. And both of them have safety exits in case the audience gets too close. He hesitated, then opened another tab. Google Photos. There's something else, he said. You should see this. A shared album loaded. Hundreds of photos. Most of them were things you'd expect. Dinners, walks, views from hotel balconies. But then I started noticing details. In the captions. In the names. She wasn't using Melissa. She was going by Mara Vale. Every comment he'd left. You look incredible, Mara. Every reservation under that name. Everything in that album, even the digital breadcrumbs, pointed to a different version of her entirely. Not just hiding a relationship. She was erasing and rewriting her identity. That's when it all clicked. The separate Venmo account I'd found charges from. The other Instagram I'd stumbled on a month ago that was quickly deleted. The time she came home smelling like shampoo, I didn't recognize. She wasn't cheating. She was duplicating herself. This condo wasn't just a place to sneak around. It was a second life. And the man in front of me? He wasn't just a fling. He was the other half of an alternate reality where I didn't exist. And she had built it carefully, strategically, with exit strategies, with lies that sounded just sane enough to be trusted. I stood upright. Something in me shifted, not anger, not sadness. Something colder. Resolve. I need you to do one more thing for me, I said, meeting his eyes. And I need you to be honest. Completely. He nodded. Does she ever talk about the future with you? He blinked. Yeah, all the time. What kind of future? He paused. Then, reluctantly, one where you're not around. I didn't speak the entire drive home. The streets blurred into themselves, brake lights, intersections, blinking signs I couldn't read. I wasn't really seeing anything anymore. Just hearing words over and over in my head. Unstable. Mara. One where you're not around. When I finally pulled into the driveway, it was almost midnight. The porch light was still on, like it had been every night she was away. Except now, I understood why she insisted we keep it that way. Melissa, no, Mara, wanted the illusion of home intact, even when she wasn't living in it. I stood in the foyer for a long time, staring at the shoes by the door. Her sneakers were lined up perfectly next to mine, still speckled with city dirt. I'd polished those floors just 3 days ago. She hadn't worn those shoes here. They were props. Everything felt like a prop now. I made my way upstairs, not really knowing what I was looking for. Her side of the closet was neat, but missing things. Dresses I hadn't seen in months. Jewelry boxes with empty slots. Half her makeup gone, like it had evaporated slowly. A few drawers were full, just enough to look normal, but anyone paying attention would see it for what it was, a half exit, designed over time. I sat on the edge of the bed and reached under it. There was a lockbox, something she kept tax forms and old travel documents in. We'd opened it together years ago when we were planning our honeymoon. I knew the code, 0722. Our anniversary. I didn't hesitate. I just punched it in and opened the lid. Inside, there were the expected things. Passport, old receipts, an expired ID. But beneath those was something new. A notebook, unmarked, soft leather cover, pages slightly frayed at the corners. I opened it carefully. The first page started with a line that made my spine stiffen. If he ever finds this, he'll pretend it was an invasion. But I call it insurance. It was her handwriting. My pulse kicked hard. I flipped to the next page. More notes. Some dated, others not. But they weren't diary entries. They were scripts. Paragraphs rehearsing how she would explain things. excuses, emotional pivots, the kind of phrases people memorize in case they need to steer a confrontation. You're imagining things, Warren. You've always had a tendency to spiral. I never lied. I protected you from what you couldn't handle. You pushed me away long before I ever left. Over and over, carefully written in variations. Some crossed out, rewritten again with softer tones or more confident language. There were even bullet points with labels. For therapist, if talking to lawyer, if media ever gets involved, LOL. I felt sick. This wasn't just cheating. This wasn't even just manipulation. This was war planning. A deliberate, rehearsed dismantling of a life. Of my life. And in the middle of the notebook, between pages full of weaponized phrases and polished denials, I found something else, something that made my blood run cold. A name I didn't recognize. Leah Vinter. Under it, an address. Different city. 2 hours away. And next to it, a date. Circled twice. November 22nd. That was 10 days from now. Why was she writing down an address and a date for someone I'd never heard of? I pulled out my laptop and searched the name. Nothing came up immediately. No social profiles. No local news. But there was a listing in an online business directory. Leah Vinter, LCSW. Therapist. Family systems specialist. She wasn't planning another affair. She was planning an intervention. And I wasn't going to be the one speaking at it. I was going to be the subject. The next morning, I called the number listed under Leah Vinter's name. My hands were still trembling as I held the phone to my ear, but I forced myself to breathe. I didn't want to come off erratic. Not when someone might already be framing me that way. The voicemail clicked in. Hi, you've reached the office of Leah Vinter, licensed clinical social worker. If you're a new client, please leave your name and number. If this is an emergency. I hung up before the beep. I couldn't risk leaving a trail. Not yet. Instead, I got in the car and started driving. 2 hours on the road felt longer than it should have. My thoughts wouldn't settle. I kept flipping back and forth between scenarios in my head, trying to predict what I'd find, what she might have told this woman about me, how far this script of hers really went. By the time I pulled up to the office, a quiet 2-story house converted into a therapy practice. The sun was low and casting sharp shadows through the trees. The sign out front was subtle. The Vinter practice, family systems, and trauma. Everything about the place felt intentionally gentle, designed to disarm. I stepped inside, pretending to be just another guy who needed to talk. The waiting room was small. Soft blue walls, muted lighting, the kind of environment where even your anger might come out as a whisper. A receptionist glanced up from her desk. Can I help you? I hesitated. Is Leo available? Do you have an appointment? No, but it's important. She gave me a measured smile, the kind people in her position are trained to give when someone might be a little off. I'm sorry, she's in session right now. I can check if she has a moment after. Tell her it's about Melissa Vaughn. The name landed hard. The receptionist's smile faltered, just for a second. One moment. She disappeared into the hallway. I stayed standing, heart thudding in my throat. I was either about to be thrown out or invited into something I wouldn't be able to walk back from. Leah Vinter stepped out 5 minutes later. Early 50s, composed, eyes like searchlights, the kind that could read you in silence. She looked me over before speaking. You're Warren. It wasn't a question. She didn't ask how I knew her. She didn't ask why I was there. She just opened the door wider and gestured me in. Her office smelled faintly of eucalyptus and paper. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with titles on generational trauma, cognitive restructuring, emotional codependency. I sat across from her, unsure of how to begin. She's planning something, I finally said. Something involving you. Leah didn't react. Not visibly. But she tilted her head slightly, like a therapist does when they know something you don't. Melissa has been seeing me for over a year, she said. And I'm aware of her situation. Her situation? I repeated. You mean the fact that she's been lying to me, living a second life, cheating? She never described it as cheating. Leah cut in, voice calm but firm. She said she created emotional boundaries in a space that was no longer emotionally safe. I laughed. So she's rebranding adultery as self-care? Leah didn't laugh back. She shared a lot about your relationship, she said. Your instability, your difficulty processing criticism, your need to control narratives. I'm not unstable, I snapped. Warren, she said, leaning forward, I'm not judging you. But I need you to understand that Melissa didn't come to me to escape you. She came to me because she thought she owed you protection, even when she felt unsafe. That word again. Unsafe. It was all starting to make sense now. The phrasing, the caution, the calculated way Melissa had constructed this version of me, not just to the man in the condo, but to her therapist. She hadn't been preparing to leave me. She'd been preparing to discredit me, to neutralize me. So if I ever stood up, spoke out, or tried to reclaim my own truth, she already had a support structure in place to make sure no one would believe me. I sat there, stunned. Then, without thinking, I pulled the notebook from my coat and slid it across the desk. Leah opened it. She read the first page. Her face changed. "This isn't part of her therapeutic record," she said slowly. "I've never seen this." "No," I said, "because it wasn't for you. It was insurance, in case her narrative didn't land." Leah turned another page, then another. Her lips pressed into a line. The silence grew heavy. "I need to speak with Melissa," she finally said, her tone shifting. "Alone." But I wasn't done yet. "There's more," I said. "There's a pattern here. She's been preparing for this break for months. She's not just trying to leave, she's trying to erase me." Leah looked up. "What are you saying?" I leaned in, my voice low. "I think this isn't the first time Melissa's done this." I didn't drive home after leaving Leah's office. I just sat in my car in the parking lot, gripping the wheel like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to this version of reality. My pulse thudded in my ears. The more I replayed what she'd said, the more something buried in my memory began to claw its way to the surface. A name. A conversation I hadn't thought about in years. Back when Melissa first got her job at Everwell Pharma, she worked under a woman named Cassandra Reeve. Tall, magnetic, intimidating in the kind of way that makes people want to impress her. Melissa used to come home with stories about how sharp Cass was, how she never let anyone get away with bulls asterisk, and how she always smelled like fresh citrus and old money. But then, abruptly, she stopped talking about her. When I asked about her a few weeks later, Melissa said, "She left the company. Toxic workplace stuff. Total mess. HR cover-up. We don't talk about it." At the time, I didn't question it. Melissa had a way of drawing a line under things when she was done with them. That line always came with a smile and a wall. But now, with everything I'd seen, everything I'd heard, something didn't sit right. I started searching that night. At first, there was nothing. No scandals, no lawsuits. Cassandra Reeve's LinkedIn still existed, but it hadn't been updated in over 3 years. Her title still said Director of Brand Strategy, Everwell Pharma. No new positions. No promotions. No farewell post. Just frozen. I expanded the search. Deep forums. Obscure HR discussion boards. Finally, a comment thread buried in a now-defunct corporate blog, archived on the Wayback Machine. "Anyone remember what happened with C.R. at Everwell? That whole situation vanished real fast. Heard rumors about a breakdown. But she just disappeared." I dug deeper. Public records. A few clicks led me to an obituary. Cassandra Lynn Reeve. Died November 2019. Apparent suicide. I just stared at the screen, my chest tight. Melissa never told me Cassandra died. She never said a word. And then I found something worse. In the guest book attached to the obituary, hidden under the list of public condolences, was one short private comment left by someone using only their initials. C.R. was more than she let people see. "I hope the truth stays buried. M.V." My hands started sweating. M.V. Melissa Vaughn. Mara Vale. Either one worked. My wife had left a note on the obituary of a woman she said she barely knew. A woman who, according to her, left a job under messy circumstances. And now here she was, writing cryptic messages about the truth staying buried. I copied the entire page, took screenshots, backed everything up to an encrypted drive. My body was buzzing now, but not from panic. From the clarity of a new question forming. What if Melissa's notebook wasn't her first draft? What if this is what she does? She enters lives, reinvents herself, cultivates allies, rewrites history from the inside out. And when she's ready to vanish, she doesn't just disappear. She takes the story with her and leaves the people behind wondering whether they imagined it all. Cassandra may have been the first to feel it, the suffocating pull of Melissa's curated chaos, but I was going to be the last. I wouldn't let her finish writing me out. Not quietly. Not cleanly. Not this time. Melissa was already home when I pulled into the driveway. Her car sat in the same spot it always did, like nothing had changed. Porch light glowing, windows warm, the house still wearing its disguise. I killed the engine and sat in silence for a while, the night pressing in around me. No music, no plan, just my breath and the weight of everything I knew now. I stepped through the front door without knocking. She was in the kitchen, barefoot, pouring herself a glass of wine like it was just another evening. When she looked up, her expression didn't flinch, didn't twitch. That was her talent. She never reacted first. "You're back early," she said. Voice smooth. A measured blend of concern and control. I was going to. "Don't," I said quietly. "Don't start the act. I'm not here to scream, or accuse, or fall apart. I just want to talk. For real. For once." She held my gaze for a moment, then slowly set the glass down. "Okay," she said. "Talk." I walked past her, into the living room. Our living room, the one she'd been phasing herself out of for months. I sat on the edge of the couch. She followed. I went to the condo. I began. Met him. Saw the pictures. Read the emails. She didn't deny it. I found the notebook. I continued. "I know about Leah. About the date you planned for whatever intervention you were going to stage. And I found the obituary. Cassandra Reeve. That one got her. Barely. A flicker in her eyes. But it was there. You've done this before," I said. "Haven't you?" Still, she didn't speak. So I kept going. "You create distance. You control the narrative. You turn people into versions of themselves that can't fight back. You weaponize empathy. You prescript your exits. You always leave first. And then you bury the evidence in language that makes everyone doubt the person you leave behind." I wasn't yelling. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. Melissa finally sat back, arms crossed. "You think you figured me out. I don't need to," I said. "I don't want to. That's the point." She tilted her head, confused. "I've spent months trying to understand what you're doing. Why you're doing it. What I did wrong. I've clawed through emails, timelines, lies, all of it, trying to build the case, like I was on trial for a crime I didn't commit. But the truth is, I'm not on trial." I stood up, walked to the bookshelf, pulled down the photo album we hadn't opened in years. I placed it on the table in front of her. "Whatever version of me you wrote in your notebook, that's not the version I'm taking with me. That's not who I am. You don't get to define me after this." She stared at the album but didn't touch it. "I'm filing tomorrow," I said. "You won't need to stage anything. No interventions. No narratives. Just clean lines and real consequences." "And what do you expect from me?" she asked. Her voice wasn't defiant. It was weary, almost human. "Nothing," I said. And I meant it. I left that night with a bag, my laptop, the photos from the condo, and the backup drive. I didn't burn her down. I didn't expose her. I didn't need to. Because the best revenge was not being rewritten. It's been 6 months. I live in a quiet town now. I rented a small place near the water. I run in the mornings. I cook actual meals. I started therapy on my own terms. Not because someone told me I needed to be managed, but because I wanted to understand my patterns, where I vanished, what I accepted, why I stayed silent for so long. I no longer scroll through old texts or stalk her social media. Truth is, I don't care where Melissa is. Whether she's still with him. Whether she became Mara full-time. Whether she's crafting another story for someone else. She doesn't live in mine anymore. And every time I feel the past trying to creep back in, I remind myself of something. The version of me she tried to leave behind? He never made it out. I did.